Welcome to the last video of this section. It's now time for some final considerations. And the first thing that we can do is to actually run or build a script that we have here. So remember that we have this build CSS script here, which will compile, prefix, and compress our code. So let's do that. And so I'm opening a new tab here and running npm run build CSS. And so here we go. So it's now done doing all its work. So let's check it out. So this one is the prefixed style. And so as we scroll down here, you will immediately notice that there aren't any prefixes on the CSS Grid properties. And that's because the only prefixes that ever existed for CSS Grid are from a very old version of the specification in one of the very old Internet Explorers. And so that's not really useful at all these days, and that's why the auto prefixer turns off prefixes for grid by default. Okay, so they're not really necessary, they're not adding any meaning here. Okay, and so what we have here is just the normal compiled CSS, where some things have the prefixes, but not really the CSS Grid properties. Okay, and then of course, our final CSS is this beautiful thing here. Okay. Next, another thing that I wanted to mention in this video is that there's actually a shorthand for defining these template rows and columns in a grid. So if you someday encounter something like this, so grid template, then that means that you're seeing the shorthand property. Okay, and it works like this. So we have the rows, then the slash, and then the columns. I believe, at least, because I'm never really using the shorthand, because I find it quite confusing to have all of this code here in the same line of CSS. Okay, but anyway, let's deactivate these two rows and take a look. And whoa, what's going on here? And so I guess it is actually the other way around. So first the columns and then the rows. Let's take a look at that now. And it still looks the same. So I'm not really sure what's going on here. Let's move it back. So rows again first and columns. And let's take a look at that again. Let's inspect all of this container. And it says here for some reason that it's an invalid property value. So I'm not really sure why that is. So let me try it somewhere else. Okay, so somewhere less, where there's a less complex grid. So for example here, well, this one doesn't really have rows. So let's try it here in the gallery. Okay. So grid template. And so first the rows. And then the columns. Give it a save. And let's check it out. And yeah, so this time it actually works. But in fact, the property is not really here. Let's reload this. And what's going on here? Ah, okay, I forgot the semicolon. Ah, yeah, so finally, now it's working. So here's the grid template, first the rows, then the columns, and then here we go. So now it's working. And so, yeah, so if you someday stumble across this syntax here, then just know that this is the exact same way as having the rows with this part here and the columns with this part. Okay, so that's just something else that I wanted to mention here. And something else that I wanted to mention is that there are some things that I think are missing in grids. And I believe we already talked about most of them. And the first thing is CSS subgrids. So subgrids is something where the grid inside a grid can snap the tracks to the parent container, so to the parent grid. And that would be something really helpful and I believe that it's actually coming to Grid sometime in the future. Also, it would be great if we could change individual gaps. So for example, if we could specify that between line 2 and 3, we wanted to have a different gap than the rest of the rows or the columns. And the third and last thing that I think is missing is a selector where we can select the nth row and the nth column. So for example, if we want to say that we want just to select the second column or the second row of a grid, or all the even rows or all the odd columns, something like this. If we wanted to do something like this, we couldn't really do it with CSS because the selectors right now do not exist. So these things are what I think are missing from CSS Grid right now. And if someday something really important happens or changes in CSS Grid, then of course I will make sure to upload a new video explaining what changed and give you some example of that. So please rest assured that this course and this section will always be kept updated by me in case that anything important happens and changes. Okay? And with this, I think we're really done with this section and with this project. And I hope that you love CSS Grid as much as I do it. I will personally start using it more and more in my projects, and I hope that I was able to teach you and to show you how all of this works, and that I could help you to become a bit better at CSS front-end web development. All right, and that's it. Have a nice day and see you next time.